Discover the incredible truth about life on Earth 20,000 years ago. Hidden wonders revealed. The excitement in Sarah's classroom was palpable. Her students buzzed with energy, the air dense with young voices asking questions about a time when giants roamed the earth and ancient cultures thrived. Her heart raced. This was what she lived for. On a crisp spring afternoon, as the class set out for a hike through the wooded trails of Maplewood, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that today would bring something extraordinary. Little did she know, fate had thrust a mystery into her path, something that would shake the very foundation of her life. As they meandered through the fragrant pines, laughter and stories intertwined, Sarah's gaze fell upon a time-worn oak tree. The sight sparked curiosity, igniting a flare of adventure in the students. How long had this oak stood? What stories had it witnessed? With a deep breath, Sarah led her eager students closer. They gathered round, their faces bright with anticipation, as she knelt beside the tree's ancient roots. Suddenly, her fingers brushed against something cool and hard underneath the dirt, a glimmer of history encased in the soil. "Whoa, what's this?" she exclaimed, her heart pounding in disbelief. Everyone crouched closer, eyes wide in wonder as Sarah unearthed a beautifully carved stone, an artifact whispering tales of the past. In that moment, time held still. Unbeknownst to her, this piece of history linked her beloved community to a world long forgotten 20,000 years past, where survival was forged in unity amongst tribes. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The exhilaration of discovery cascaded through her as a teacher, nothing compared to this moment. She envisioned the lessons and stories she could share, the connections to history that would ignite passion in her students. Yet, as her dreams soared, a shadow flickered in her mind. Her father, Hank, the gruff military veteran who saw the world only through a lens of practicality and survival. To him, her ambition seemed like an affront to their struggles, a betrayal as word of the discovery swept through Maplewood. Sarah felt the community's spirit circle around her. Meetings buzzed with excitement, discussions of preservation and history igniting a fire within the townsfolk. But at home, tension brewed like a summer storm. Hank's skepticism loomed over her, deepening the rift between their lives. "You're chasing dreams, honey," he would say, his voice hard. "What does any of this history have to do with making a living?" As the developer's threats began to swirl with plans to pave over history for a sprawling complex, Sarah stood at a crossroads. She was torn between the haunting pulse of her family's pain and the heartbeat of her community, struggling to find a voice. The impending town hall meeting approached. With Hank on one side and her students rallying around her on the other, the stakes had never been higher. Would this be the moment they could find common ground? Or would the struggle for their heritage tear both family and town apart? The town hall buzzed with chatter as Sarah adjusted her notes for the umpteenth time, her nerves buzzing like the fluorescent lights above. The room held a mixture of familiar faces: parents, friends, and members of the community. They had come to discuss the urgent matter of preserving the newly discovered artifact and the land that held its secrets. Sarah's heart raced. She could see the excitement in her students' eyes, how they believed in her mission. They sat in the front row, wide-eyed and hopeful, ready to champion history alongside her. But then her gaze drifted to the back of the room. Hank stood there, arms crossed tightly across his chest, his face a mask of skepticism. For a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them. She could feel the weight of his judgment, the silent disappointment that had shaped so much of her life. As the town's mayor called for order, Sarah took a deep breath. She could feel the cool surface of the carved stone in her pocket, a reminder of what this all meant: the connection to a past that held substance, a foundation for their future. Was it really possible to bridge the divide with her father, to show him that dreams could build, not just distract? One by one, community members stood to speak, their voices echoing her thoughts. The importance of preserving history, the allure of learning from the past. Excitement grew, passion igniting each speaker's words. They radiated hope, expressing how the stone wasn't just an artifact but a part of their shared identity, a link to ancestors whose lives shaped the very soil beneath their feet. But when Hank's turn came, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. He cleared his throat, glancing around as if searching for support. "Listen," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with world weariness. "I understand where you all are coming from, but times have changed. We need to think about the future. We need jobs, not old stones." The murmurs of discontent rippled through the crowd. Sarah's heart sank. She felt the fierce longing to defend her beliefs, to stand up for what she knew in her heart was right. But how could she? Her father's words echoed in her mind, blending with her dreams of making history come alive for her students. Could she make him see? "Dad, it's not just about a stone. It's about who we are, our story," she blurted, her voice surprising even herself. The energy shifted. Gasps and supportive nods filled the room. "We have to look beyond what we see right now. This is our chance." Hank faltered for a moment, meeting her eyes. She could see the weariness etched into his features. And yet, somewhere deeper, a flicker of recognition. "Imagine a place where our kids can learn, where history breathes, where we can preserve our roots even as we build," she continued with determination. "We can have both." As Sarah spoke, she caught glimpses of her students nodding, eyes filled with passion. With every word she poured out, she envisioned a community united, a legacy they could nurture. But before she could finish, the mayor chimed back in, an unexpected wave of urgency cutting through the moment. "We need to vote now. Time is of the essence." In that instant, everything hung in the air, the potential of a united front battling against the ticking clock of expediency. Would the town rally around this shared vision? Would Hank see her intention, her heart? The hands voted, the counted silence thickening with every second. Sarah held her breath as her eyes locked back with her father's, and then suddenly a loud crash echoed from outside. Glass shattered. Gasps erupted from the gathered crowd. What now? The night had only just begun. The chaos erupted outside, drowning out the mayor's call for order and pulsing anxiety through the crowd. Sarah's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She tore her gaze away from Hank, who still stood unyielding at the back, to the open doors of the town hall. The crowd surged, curiosity mixing with fear. "What was that?" someone shouted, voice trembling. "Stay in your seats." The mayor tried to calm the frenzy, but the authority in his voice faltered against the panic sweeping through the room. Sarah's instinct kicked in. She had to know what had happened. With a determined breath, she edged her way through the throng, her mind racing. Her students watched her, their worried expressions urging her forward. "I'll be right back," she called, trying to sound reassuring, although inside, she felt anything but. Bursting through the doors, she was met with a whirlwind of voices outside. The moonlight cast eerie shadows, illuminating shards of glass glittering on the pavement. A large crate lay toppled, its contents spilling out. "What did they hit?" someone asked, voice laced with concern. "Looks like it came from the museum," a teenager exclaimed, pointing at the nearby building. Sarah's stomach dropped. The museum held the artifacts she cherished, the very history she was fighting to preserve. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the collective gasps as they took in the scene. When she reached the crate, her breath caught in her throat. Inside, a delicate wooden totem lay in pieces. "No," she whispered, kneeling in front of the broken remnants. Each splintered piece felt like a stab to her heart. This wasn't just damage. It was history lost, fragments of stories that might never be told again. From behind her, Hank's firm footsteps approached. "What a mess," he stated flatly, his voice cutting through her despair like a knife. "What happened?" she asked, barely able to look at him. "There was a delivery truck that lost control. They said it was an accident," he replied, his tone more somber now. Sarah's eyes flicked up to meet his. For the first time, She saw a hint of regret in his expression. It can't be what it looks like. We can fix this, right? She felt her voice quaver, mixing hope with desperation. Fixing it won't be easy, he said, a distant worry shadowing his features. But in that moment, a flicker of determination ignited within Sarah. She couldn't let this disaster define their fight for history. She stood up, her resolve hardening. We need to rally the community, Hank. If they can see what we're losing, they'll understand. We can't let them take this from us. Hank absorbed her words, and for the first time, there was no dismissiveness in his gaze. He looked deeply troubled, but something shifted. Maybe it was understanding, or perhaps a reluctant acknowledgement of her passion. As the crowd pressed closer, murmurs of support began to form. Parents whispered to each other, their expressions tightening with resolve. Sarah could feel the energy shifting once more, the community rallying together, just as she had dreamed. Then, just as she began to feel that collective strength, a figure emerged from the shadows, a cloaked silhouette that stopped them in their tracks. A haunting presence amidst the chaos. The stranger seemed to carry an air of mystery that sent shivers down her spine. Do you seek the truth? The figure asked, voice low and resonant. The gathered townsfolk turned, intrigued and wary. Sarah's heart raced. What did this mean? What truth awaited them, hidden in the ruins of their shattered past? Who are you? She demanded, stepping forward slightly, curiosity battling caution. The figure raised its head, revealing a face obscured by a deep hood. The past speaks through me, and it demands to be heard in that moment. Sarah knew the depths of this night were just beginning to unfold, and the real questions loomed just ahead, ready to bring everything they thought they knew into perilous clarity. What truths lay buried beneath the fragments? What role would they all play in revealing them? The air grew heavy with anticipation as the cloaked figure surveyed the crowd. Whispers rippled through the assembled townsfolk like a wave. Sarah's heart raced, each thud echoing her mix of dread and curiosity. What do you mean, the past speaks through you? She asked, her voice sharp with urgency. The figure stepped closer, the moonlight catching the edges of the cloak and revealing strange patterns woven into the fabric. Many have forgotten what lies buried beneath, it said, pointing toward the shattered totem. These fragments hold power. They are keys to understanding truths long concealed. Sarah turned to Hank, searching his expression. His brow furrowed, and for once, he appeared at a loss for words. We can't just stand here, she urged, the energy of the crowd feeding her need for action. We need to listen. The stranger gestured toward the broken totem. This artifact is only the beginning. It speaks of an age when your ancestors walked these lands in harmony with the earth. A time of deep connection and respect for all that is living. A chill ran down her spine. Digging into the known history of their town had been a labor of love. But what if there was even more? What happened to that way of life? She asked, her voice softening, reaching for understanding. Lost? Through greed, betrayal, and forgetfulness. The figure replied, voice rich with sorrow. But it is not too late. The truth can be reclaimed. A voice from the crowd broke the tension. What do we need to do? A woman, older and with wise eyes, stepped forward, her hands clenched with resolve. Gather the stories, the figure replied. Listen to your elders. Seek the wisdom among you. The broken pieces can be restored, both here and within your hearts. Together you can revive what has been lost. Sarah felt a swell of hope. This can't just be talk. If the town truly rallies together, we can protect what remains and heal from our past. We can honor it. Her words stirred the crowd, faces lighting up with the flicker of possibility as if sensing the shift. The figure stepped back, the cloak swirling around them as they began to fade into the shadows. Remember, the path to understanding is not without its challenges. Many truths lie in darkness. You must be prepared to face them, they warned, their voice echoing. A distant yet urgent whisper, in an instant. They were gone, leaving only the sound of wind rustling through the crowd. What does it all mean? Hank turned to Sarah, his expression a blend of doubt and fascination. I think it means we have work to do, she replied, her heart racing. The fire ignited in her once more. We have to gather everything we can. There may still be stories hidden in the old records, or in the people who remember. If we truly embrace this call for truth, we can guide the town forward. We have to act. The crowd began murmuring again, but this time it was different conversations sparked with excitement and purpose. Sarah glanced around, her students' eyes bright with inspiration. They were behind her. Maybe the community would follow too. But then, just as hope bloomed, Sarah's gaze caught a glimmer on the ground, amidst the shattered remains of the totem. A small trinket, untouched by the chaos, caught the light, a strange symbol engraved in the wood. Her breath quickened as she bent down to pick it up. What if this piece holds more than we realize? Sarah whispered to herself, heart pounding with an instinct she couldn't shake. As she gazed at the trinket, a question burned within her. What secrets did it hold? And where would it lead them? Sarah stood, the weight of the night settling in her bones. The road ahead was unclear, but she felt an undeniable pull to uncover the truth that lay waiting. Are you ready? She asked Hank, heart racing. Ready to face whatever comes next? He replied, a hint of that old stubbornness creeping back in, but she could see he was willing. Yes, she whispered, clutching the trinket tightly. We have to be. Little did they know, the uncovering of the past had only just begun. And as they took their first steps forward, the shadows of history watched, waiting for their moment to emerge. Morning dawned with a thick fog hanging over the town, like a blanket refusing to pull away from the earth. Sarah stood outside her small house, the trinket almost pulsating in her palm. The air was damp, but she was warmed by the glow of potential. The idea of uncovering the past felt like a spark igniting deep inside her. Hank joined her on the porch, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What now? He asked, the uncertainty creeping back into his voice. We start by talking to the elders. They must know something, Sarah answered, her determination stronger than the morning chill. If we can uncover their stories, maybe we can unlock the truths bound up in this symbol. Hank nodded, uncertainty mirrored in his tight-lipped expression, but he followed her without question. As they walked down the gravel path, they passed the town square, usually bustling with activity, but today it felt muted, as if the entire place was holding its breath. Their first stop was Mrs. Lawson's house. She had lived on the outskirts for as long as anyone could remember. The wooden door creaked open to reveal Mrs. Lawson, her gray hair slipping into a loose bun, eyes sparkling with life. Why, hello there. She beamed, her warm presence a comfort. What brings you two out so early? Sarah took a breath, feeling the weight of years of stories poised at the tip of her tongue. We want to know about the past, about the totem, about the town's history. Mrs. Lawson's smile faded, replaced by a gaze that seemed to peer through time. Ah, the totem. A reminder of a different world, dear. It wasn't just a statue. It was a message, an embodiment of our ancestors' beliefs. Do you think the pieces of that past can be brought back? Hank asked hesitantly. She nodded, her fingers tracing the edges of her favorite quilt. Everything is connected. We have strayed far, but the stories, the values, they can guide us back, if only we are willing to listen. Sarah leaned in. What do you remember? Can you tell us about it? Mrs. Lawson looked off into the distance, her voice trembling slightly as she recounted tales of a time when the people lived in symbiosis with the land, dancing under the stars, celebrating the earth's gifts. Her stories painted images of vibrant colors and sacred rituals, stories rich with laughter and loss. As the stories flowed, Sarah felt the weight of the trinket in her palm grow lighter, as if the memories intertwined with her own. All the whispers and soft gasps around her were giving life to a tapestry long forgotten. When they finally left Mrs. Lawson's home, both Sarah and Hank were filled with hope, a flickering flame that seemed to brighten the foggy day. But a nagging thought curled in the corners of Sarah's mind. Do you think everyone will feel this way? She murmured, worry masking her excitement. What if some refuse to believe? Hank paused, looking thoughtful. We have to show them why it matters. Maybe if they saw this trinket and heard the stories, it could change their minds. Then that's what we'll do, she decided, feeling the shift within her. They had to rally the townsfolk. We'll host a gathering. Bring everyone together and tell them what we found. Make them understand the importance of what we learned. Their newfound mission ignited a fire within Sarah. They jumped into action, spreading the word, fueled by whispers of hope as news of the gathering circulated through the town. But just as they felt a sense of victory, Sarah's fingers brushed against the symbol on the trinket. A strange warmth spread through her, and she couldn't shake off the feeling that, while the truth was surfacing, something darker loomed just beneath the surface, ready to rise that evening. As Sarah looked up at the stars, she whispered a silent wish for the strength to face whatever was coming. Little did she know, their gathering would draw not just the curious, but also eyes that sought to silence the truth they were uncovering. Would the town embrace their past, or would the shadows of history rise to meet them once more? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow on the fog, Sarah and Hank hurriedly prepared for the gathering. Maple branches were strung with twinkling lights, and colorful blankets were spread across the grass in the town square. The scent of spiced cider wafted through the air, mingling with the coolness of the evening. Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. "Do you think it will work?" Hank questioned as he adjusted a lantern to face the crowd. Despite the hope swirling in his eyes, a flicker of doubt lingered. "We have to believe it will," she replied, determination hardening her voice. "Tonight is about more than the totem. It's about bringing us together again." As the townsfolk began to gather, murmurs floated around, layered with curiosity and skepticism. Sarah took a deep breath to steady her nerves. Her gaze locked onto the trinket, its surface glinting under the light. It felt alive, as if the stories held within were urging her forward. "Look, there's Mrs. Lawson," Hank exclaimed, spotting the elder in the crowd. A ripple of excitement passed through Sarah as she waved to the woman, who smiled and seemed ready to bring her wisdom into the evening. "Welcome, everyone," Sarah called out, her voice echoing against the old buildings surrounding the square. "Thank you for coming. Tonight, we're here to reconnect with our history to understand our roots." The crowd shifted, a mix of nods and furrowed brows. Sarah swallowed hard as she continued. "We discovered some stories from our elders that remind us of who we are and what we can learn from the past." Hank took a step forward, holding the trinket high. "This totem is a bridge to those stories. It connects us to our ancestors and their wisdom," he said, his eyes scanning the crowd for reactions. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. A young man, arms crossed and lips pursed, stepped forward. "You expect us to believe this? After all these years? How can we trust something as vague as an old totem? What evidence do you have?" The tension in the square thickened like the fog that had lingered since morning. Sarah could feel a knot tightening in her stomach. "I know it sounds odd," she admitted, "but these stories have power. They remind us of values like community, respect for the earth, and our connection to one another." "Hear me out," Mrs. Lawson interjected, stepping into the light with wisdom etched in her features. "When I was a child, I witnessed how those stories shaped our lives. They taught us to cherish the land and each other. History isn't just what's written. It's alive in the way we live today." The young man hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. A few others began to nod along. The energy began to shift. With renewed courage, Sarah continued, "If we can accept our past, we can shape our future. All we need is the willingness to listen and to honor it." The murmurs grew louder as people started to lean in. One by one, faces turned earnest. Curiosity sparked like the first flickers of light from the gathering's lanterns. Hank stepped beside Sarah, the trinket glowing in his hand. "What if we all shared our stories tonight? What if we opened our hearts to what we've lost and what we could reclaim?" The crowd began to ripple with excitement. People stepped forward, encouraged by the potential of connection, sharing tales of their ancestors, dreams, and aspirations. A woman spoke of her family's struggles, while a child recounted a traditional dance long forgotten. But in the midst of the growing light, a chilling gust of wind swept through the square. Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, reminding her of the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. The weight of the trinket grew heavier again. What would these voices unearth? What might they awaken? And in that moment, as she looked around at hopeful faces, she realized that uncovering the truth was only part of a bigger challenge. When darkness emerges, how can one hold onto the light? The wind picked up, a sudden chill pushing against Sarah's skin as she felt the anxious energy swell in the square. The flickering lanterns cast playful shadows, but she couldn't shake the weight that pressed down on her. The voices grew louder, filled with tangible hope, yet the invisible thread of uncertainty was woven through it all. "Let us honor our past together," Hank said, his voice steady, easing the tension in the air. He placed the totem back down on the blanket, carefully arranged it for everyone to see. The stories may frighten us, but they also remind us of strength, resilience, and the bonds we share. One by one, people began to step forward, their hands trembling or clasped tight to their chests. A tall man with deep lines etched on his weathered face spoke first. "My grandfather used to tell me stories about the land before it was developed. He'd walk for miles, speaking of trees that could touch the sky and rivers so clear you could see the fish swimming beneath." His voice grew strong, echoing in the cool night air. "He taught me that we're merely visitors here. We owe it to the earth to respect it, cherish it." The crowd listened, collective breaths held, as his sincerity wrapped around them. Next, a woman stood up, wiping tears from her cheeks. "I was lost for so many years. I didn't know who I was or where I belonged. When I heard those old stories, I felt something shift inside me." She glanced toward Mrs. Lawson, who nodded in encouragement. "I found my identity again through those words, and I want to share that with everyone here." The warmth of shared experiences began to fill the square, overshadowing the lingering chill. They spoke of hardships, victories, and wisdom passed down through generations. As the stories flowed, Sarah noticed the shadows retreat, surrendering to the vibrant energy ignited by vulnerability and hope. Then came a voice from the back, hesitant yet gripping. It was the young man who had questioned them earlier. "I never thought I'd find value in this, but I'm coming to realize we're all searching for connection." He stepped forward, vulnerability brightening his usual bravado. "My family has been divided for years. My grandfather passed down stories that my dad dismissed. Perhaps it's time for us to come together, to hear each other again." A ripple of agreement coursed through the crowd. People glanced at one another, their eyes now reflecting understanding and compassion. It became clear. This gathering was not just about the totem, nor merely the stories. It was about healing old wounds, about rewriting a narrative with threads of unity woven into the fabric of their community as they shared. Sarah felt the weight of the trinket lift slightly. However, the chilling breeze returned, threading through her heart like a whisper. She glanced at the totem, sensing an urgent energy thrumming beneath its surface. While their voices united under the warm glow, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting to be unleashed by these stories, a truth that would not only bind them together but challenge everything they thought they knew. While the night flourished with connection, Sarah's heart raced with the sense that darkness was drawing near. The fragile light of understanding flickered in her chest, urging her forward. What was the truth hiding behind the veil of their past? Would embracing it light the path ahead or drown them in shadows once more? The soft murmur of the crowd took on a different timbre as the stories flowed, threading the air with warmth after the initial chill. Sarah could feel the anxiety building again, just beneath the surface of this newfound connection. Something was brewing, a truth lingering, ready to be unveiled. "Sarah," Hank called, breaking through her thoughts. Everyone's eyes turned in her direction, expectant. "You've been quiet tonight. Is there something you'd like to share?" The weight of their gazes pressed down on her. Words churned in her mind, but the pulsing energy from the totem held her back, a tether to something deeper. She hesitated, the moment stretching between them like an elastic band ready to snap. As she began, her voice wavering, "I have been thinking about how these stories seem to connect us. But do we remember the darker parts too? The parts where we grew apart?" Within the crowd, silence settled like fresh snow. The anticipation hung heavy as she continued. Some of our stories aren't only about triumph. They're about the times we didn't listen, or where fear kept us apart. A young girl sitting near the front, no more than 10, looked at her with wide eyes. But we can change that, right? We can make sure we listen now? Sarah felt a swell of hope. Yes, exactly. But we must also acknowledge what we've been avoiding. Our histories, even the painful parts, shape who we are. People nodded, a wave of understanding rippling through the square. Their earlier reluctance transformed into a quiet revolution, a recognition that healing required honesty. Hank stepped closer to her, his expression a mixture of pride and sorrow. Sometimes, facing the truth is the hardest part, he said softly, his voice steady as an anchor. But necessary. Another voice chimed in from the left, a woman who had yet to speak. I lost my brother because we kept secrets. If we had just talked, she trailed off, wiping tears from her eyes, her vulnerability drawing collective empathy. Her words stirred something in the group, a palpable shift towards embracing the shadows in their past. As more spoke up, Sarah became aware of the energy surrounding the totem, thrumming louder now, almost alive. It pulsed with a rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the gathering, one that swelled with unresolved stories clawing for light. What if we aren't just sharing to heal? One old-timer quipped, crinkling his brow. What if these stories? What if they're our past seeking resolution? What if the truth we fear turns out to be our greatest ally? His voice layered in a challenge, sparking a fire in Sarah's chest. She leaned forward, feeling the pull of the stories demanding to be heard. Maybe the totem is urging us to uncover where we've stumbled and risen. The stories that define us can be transformed if we only allow them. Strength can be born from our darkest moments. The crowd erupted in murmurs, sparks of agreement igniting the air. They were no longer escaping their past, there was a commitment to face it together. Sarah's heart raced, but so did the collective pulse of the group. Now a force of transformation as tension ebbed and flowed. The lanterns flickered brighter, illuminating their faces with a new resolve. A loud wind swept across the square, causing the totem to vibrate against the blanket. Sarah felt it anew, like a beacon calling them toward something monumental. Tonight marks a shift, Hank declared, raising his voice to pierce through the swirling energy. Let this be the moment we choose to embrace our truth, no matter how daunting it may be. But just as the crowd surged with newfound determination, a loud crack echoed above them, slicing through the harmony like thunder. The wind howled, as a shadow loomed larger against the backdrop of the glowing lanterns, reminding them that truths, the ones they sought to uncover, aren't always welcome. What is that? Someone gasped, panic bleeding into the collective tranquility. Sarah's heart seized again, but this time, not with fear. With the weight of the moment bearing down on her, she could feel the stories, merging, aligning with something bigger. It was almost like the totem was preparing to reveal its true purpose. Was this the moment they had all been waiting for, or the beginning of something they weren't ready to face? As silence fell thick like a fog, Sarah knew the next chapter awaited. What awaited them in the darkness, revelation or ruin? The crack split the air like a whip, and the crowd froze. The warmth they had fostered moments before flickered, faces turning from hopeful to strained, eyes flitting nervously to the darkening sky above the totem. Sarah felt her heart beat louder, as if trying to break past the fear shrouding them. A murmur spread like wildfire among the crowd. What was that? Hank moved closer to Sarah, shielding her instinctively. There was a deep rumble in the distance, a growl of nature pushing back against their gathering. Maybe it's just the storm? A man near the edge suggested, his voice shaky, but uncertainty clawed at the edges. The sky brightened momentarily, the clouds parting just enough to reveal a flash of lightning, illuminating something in the distance. Sarah squinted, trying to discern what it was. It was hard to tell through the shadows, but she could see shapes forming. Tall silhouettes, almost human-like in stature but distorted in an unexplainable way. What if it's a warning? She breathed, thoughts racing. The stories they crafted and the truths they yearned to face felt flimsy now, overshadowed by this unknown. A wave of anxiety washed over the crowd, fear webbing through every heart. "We're here to confront what binds us," Hank rallied, though his own voice wavered. "We can't be stopped now. This moment belongs to us." But even his confidence faltered against the encroaching darkness. The shadows shifted closer, surfacing from the distance. With every flicker of the lanterns, they seemed to pulse, like a living entity drawn to the warmth of their shared vulnerability. Sarah shivered, both from the chill in the air and a predatory feeling creeping over her. Then it happened. A figure stepped into the light, indistinct yet formidable. It raised its arms, and the wind howled in response, whipping around them like a cyclone. "Who dares awaken the secrets of the past?" It thundered, voice resonating with ancient echoes that felt both threatening and deeply familiar. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Sarah's stomach dropped. She had fought all her life to understand her family's history, the stories of loss and love that shaped her. But now it felt as though those histories were tangling with forces beyond their comprehension. "Stay together," Hank shouted, stepping forward, one hand raised in solidarity. "We're not afraid. Are we not afraid?" echoed the mysterious voice. The shadows frothed around its edges, glistening with latent power. "You seek truth, yet harbor fears deeper than the secrets you wish to unveil." As Sarah took a step closer, she didn't feel fear. She felt an overwhelming realization that they had unleashed something. "No more secrets," she declared, her voice barely a whisper, but it felt like the wind carried her words to the shadow. "We're ready to listen, to learn." The figure paused, the energy swirling around it stilling. "Then listen closely, for what you seek lies beyond your comprehension. The light you crave comes hand in hand with darkness." Another rumble echoed, this time deeper, resonating within their chests. Sarah's mind raced as the totem pulsed stronger, the air thick with tension. Would the revealed truths serve as a blessing or a curse? And then there was a hush, a pregnant pause that weighed against the storm, the air, the crowd. Everything was poised at the edge of reality. "Prepare," the figure finally said. "For the truth you uncover can ignite flames of hope or unleash torrents of despair. The path you walk now is more treacherous than you know." A shiver ran down Sarah's spine as anticipation mingled with the shadows. She felt the totem vibrate beneath her feet as if bracing for the storm, preparing to unleash all that had been repressed. Was this what it meant to face the truth? She could feel everyone holding their breath. What awaited them was still hidden in the dark, but one thing was certain. They were at the brink of something profound. What choice would they make when the truth finally revealed itself? The air crackled with tension, the shadows leaning in as the crowd held its collective breath. Sarah could feel the weight of their collective hopes and fears pressing down like a thick fog. The cloaked figure loomed, a bridge between the past and their uncertain future. Unfurled before them lay the choice. Would they embrace the truth that lay ahead, no matter how daunting? "Gather your stories," the figure commanded, their voice echoing like a thunderclap. "Let your light break through the darkness, for within you lies the strength to reshape your fate." A flicker of determination ignited within Sarah as she stepped forward, embodying the very essence of the stories they had gathered throughout the evening. "We will listen," she shouted, her voice vibrant with resolve. "We're not afraid to face what we've hidden away. This is our moment to reclaim our past, shadows and all." As if drawn by her words, the figures in the darkness began to shift, revealing shapes that were human-like but filled with tangled energy, spirits torn between realms, longing for acknowledgement. The shadows whispered through the air, swirling like smoke, each carrying tales waiting to be told. Gasps from the crowd intermingled with awe as the realization began to sink in. The truth they sought was intertwined with their fears, their pain, and their resilience. A voice rose from the crowd, a courageous elder stepping forward. "We have buried our stories too long. They have shaped us, and now they yearn to be reborn." The crowd murmured in agreement, emboldened by each shared sentiment. Encouraged by the energy pulsing around them, one by one, townspeople opened their hearts. A single mother spoke of her struggle, the sacrifices made to keep her family together. A teenager shared how the stories passed from generation to generation had guided him through darkness. Their collective vulnerability swelled like a tide, revealing the scars of past wounds as well as hope that flickered like fireflies in the night. And in the midst of the emotions swirling around them, Hank felt the warmth in the moment, a unity he once doubted possible between himself and Sarah. Reaching for her hand, he squeezed gently, pride coursing through him. Together, he whispered, his voice steady yet thick with emotion. Together, Sarah echoed, lifting the totem high, its symbolic weight mirrored in her heart. The cloaked figure watched, their form shimmering with intrigue. So be it, they proclaimed, voice resonating off the old buildings that cradled the town square. You honor your past, and in doing so you create a new path. However, know that there will be trials ahead. Each truth demands accountability. The light you embrace will test your bonds. A murmur of unease filtered through the crowd. Sarah felt the intensity rise. We're ready, she called out, determination flooding her veins. We will face whatever challenges await us. We owe it to our ancestors and to ourselves. Stepping forward to the foreboding figure, she locked eyes with it, her heart pounding in rhythm with the pulsing totem. What must we do to keep the truth alive? The figure's gaze softened momentarily, layers of fear and turmoil mixing with a flicker of understanding. You must forge a new legacy, one that pays respect to both the comforts of your past and the truths of your present. Seek knowledge, embrace forgiveness, and unite in love. The shadows will always be present, but you have the choice to shine amidst them. As the figure uttered these final words, a gust of wind swirled around them. The light flickering from the lanterns danced wildly, its glow illuminating each face in the crowd, revealing the determination set within their hearts. It was a moment of unity, where fear transformed into empowerment, darkness reshaped into the promise of light. Then, with a powerful exhale, the cloaked figure faded back into the shadows, leaving only echoes of their voice and the pulsating energy of the totem behind. The crowd whispered, eyes glistening, as the night felt thoroughly transformed. Sarah could see it, the world had changed in that instant. They would carry the weight of their past together, challenging the shadows that lingered, ready to face whatever truths cradled within their community's core. Her voice rose above the murmur, vibrant and fierce. We have each other, and together we will thrive. No more shadows will silence our stories. We are the authors of our legacy. And with those words, Sarah felt her spirit ignite. The stories shared would forever echo through Maplewood. The community stood not just as individuals, but as a tapestry woven together by history, trials, and the promise of brighter tomorrows. As she looked to Hank, that once impenetrable wall between them had crumbled, and the spark of connection flickered brightly now, reborn as understanding and shared purpose. In that moment, under a blanket of stars that shone down like guardian spirits, they felt the collective heartbeat of their town, a legacy forged from unity, healing, and empowerment. This is how they would revive their past, transform their future, and embrace the beauty still woven into the fabric of their lives, a journey now illuminated by the strength that comes from listening and honoring every single story. This was not just an ending, but a new beginning born from the depths of darkness, ready to overcome and inspire. But their journey doesn't end here. This is your call to action. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories that unfold. Don't wait. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our stories alive. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't just stop there, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread hope, connection, and truth. Don't wait not even one more second. Join the movement.